In 1536, 25 members of Jacques Cartier's expedition had already died. Another 50 were expected to follow within days. They were anchored in the St. Lawrence River. They had weapons, boats, and a crew of trained sailors. Not one of them could feed themselves, because no one had told them what was growing on the shoreline directly beside their ship. That plant is number 15 on this list. Here is what every wilderness survival course, every prepper channel, and every emergency preparedness guide gets fundamentally wrong. They teach you to hunt. They teach you to fish. They tell you to identify berries cautiously, and to avoid mushrooms unless you have years of training. All of that assumes the river has fish, the season is right for berries, and you have time to set snares. None of it tells you what to eat when none of those conditions are met. The landscape you're standing in right now is not empty. It has never been empty. You have simply been taught to see food in the form of animals and fruit, which requires skill, season, and luck, and to walk past everything else as if it were background scenery. 20 food sources. Everyone confirmed in military survival manuals, peer-reviewed nutritional research, or thousands of years of documented indigenous practice. Everyone available in at least one North American biome. Everyone invisible to people who have walked past them their entire lives. Item 1. The inside of a pine tree, not the needles, the layer directly beneath the outer bark. The phloem and cambium, the living inner skin of the tree. In Sweden, they called the bread made from it bark bread. In Finland, petuleipä. The Sami people of northern Scandinavia harvested it for centuries. During the famine years of 1867 and 1868, it was the documented difference between survival and starvation across entire provinces. Strip the outer bark, scrape the soft green cambium layer from the inner surface, dry it, roast it, grind it into powder. Mixed with water and formed into flat cakes, it is calorie-dense, digestible, and documented in 2,000 years of human use. That same tree stands on every Canadian highway shoulder and every suburban trail on the continent. Item 2. The pillbug. The roly-poly. The thing you have been picking up and putting back down since childhood, living under every rock, every rotting log, every piece of damp debris on the continent. It is not an insect. That is the critical survival detail. Armadillidium vulgare is the only terrestrial crustacean in temperate North America, more closely related to shrimp and lobster than to any insect species. Boiled in water, they taste like shrimp. Foragers who have tested them describe the flavor as indistinguishable from small river shrimp. They are everywhere. They cannot run. And they are a meaningful protein source in conditions where protein is the primary deficit. Item 3. Rock tripe. Sir John Franklin's 1820 Arctic expedition survived a Canadian winter partially by boiling it. Umbilicaria, a lichen that grows on exposed rock surfaces in cold climates, known in survival contexts as rock tripe. It cannot be eaten raw. The acids cause severe gastrointestinal distress. Boiled twice in fresh water, the liquid becomes a broth with enough caloric and mineral content to sustain life in extreme conditions. It looks like dark, crinkled leather peeling from rock surfaces. It grows on stone faces across the Canadian Shield, the Rockies, Greenland, Iceland, and every cold mountainous region in the Northern Hemisphere. The survivors of the Andes crash in 1972 had it on the rocks surrounding them. Not one account of that disaster mentions it. Item 4. The earthworm. 70% protein by dry weight. More protein dense than beef, which averages 26 grams per 100 grams. The U.S. Army Survival Manual, FM 3-05.70, lists earthworms explicitly as a primary survival protein source and describes the preparation method in detail. Purge them first. Place live worms on clean soil or in clean water for several hours until they void their gut contents. After purging, they can be boiled, dried, and powdered, or consumed directly. They appear on every continent except Antarctica. After rain, they surface across every lawn, trail, and forest floor you have ever walked on. Item 5. The cattail. Most people know cattail exists. Almost nobody knows the entire plant is edible, including the part you have never thought to eat. In early spring, before the brown cylinder forms, the inner shoot can be pulled from its sheath and eaten raw. In late spring, the male flower head produces pollen in quantities sufficient to fill a bag, and that pollen functions as a direct flower substitute. The rhizome, the root structure beneath the water, can be dried and ground into starch year-round. The Cree, the Ojibwe, and multiple Great Plains nations use cattail as a complete survival food, not a supplement. Every marsh, wetland, and roadside ditch in North America contains them at densities that make them one of the most accessible emergency food sources on the continent. Item 6. Termites. In 2013, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization published a formal report endorsing insects as a global food security solution. Termites appear in the highest habitat concentration of any insect analyzed, require no hunting skill to access, and contain between 14 and 28 grams of protein per 100 grams, directly comparable to beef. Every active colony in North America is visible from the surface. Mud tubes along wood structures, soft wood with hollow internal galleries, fine sawdust-like material called frass. Break open a mound, and they surface immediately. They can be dried, roasted, or eaten directly. A single colony provides a meaningful caloric contribution in conditions where every calorie matters. Stay with me, because what comes next sold for $80 an ounce in a Mexico City restaurant last year, and you can find it in any vacant lot with an anthill. Item 7. Ant eggs. Eskimos. In Mexico City, they appear on restaurant menus priced at $80 per ounce, served at high-end establishments as a seasonal delicacy alongside caviar. They are the larvae and pupae of Lyometopum ants, harvested from the root systems of agave plants in desert and scrubland environments. The texture when cooked is similar to cottage cheese. The flavor is described as nutty and buttery, high protein, high fat, available in any region where ant colonies are active, which is every biome on Earth. Indigenous peoples of central Mexico have harvested them for 3,000 years. The knowledge has never been hidden. It simply was never considered relevant to you. Item 8. Prickly pear cactus, and the lie that could kill you. First, what is true? The flat pads of the prickly pear, nopales, are edible raw once you remove the spines using 2 rocks. The fruit is edible and contains meaningful moisture. The Tohono O'odham of the Sonoran Desert built their seasonal calendar around the prickly pear harvest for good reason. In desert survival, it is a legitimate food source with a multi-thousand-year track record. Now the lie. The barrel cactus. Every survival television program and most survival guides tell you the same thing. Cut it open and drink the liquid inside. Do not do this. The fluid inside a barrel cactus is alkaloid-laced and causes severe vomiting and diarrhea, the 2 things that accelerate dehydration faster than anything else in a desert scenario. The Serai people, who have lived in the Sonoran Desert for centuries, do not drink barrel cactus fluid. They knew. The survival entertainment industry did not tell you. The difference between those 2 facts is the one that matters when your water ran out 6 hours ago. Item 9. Birch sap. A mature birch tree in early spring, before the leaves emerge, is pushing 4 to 5 liters of sap upward per day. That sap is drinkable directly from the tree. No processing required. It contains glucose, fructose, potassium, calcium, and trace minerals. The flavor is slightly sweet, similar to dilute maple water. In Russia, Finland, Estonia, and Latvia, it has been consumed for centuries as a spring hydration source. Harvest method. A small hole cut at a slight upward angle into the trunk. A hollow twig inserted, sap collected in any container. A peak flow birch will fill a liter in hours without being permanently damaged. Every birch forest in North America is a combined water and calorie source for several weeks in early spring. Item 10. White grubs under bark, under every rotting log. Inside every section of soft, decaying wood. The larvae of June bugs, stag beetles, and longhorn beetles are among the most calorie-dense survival foods available in temperate forests. The U.S. Army Survival Manual describes the harvest method explicitly. A high-fat content, mild flavor. Per calorie, they outperform most nuts. You're not looking for something rare. You're looking for soft wood, which exists within 50 meters of every forest trail on the continent. Item 11. Scorpions. In Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, and across the southern Canadian prairie, scorpions shelter under rocks, inside hollow logs, and beneath debris. They are nocturnal and fluoresce bright green under ultraviolet light. Scorpion venom is a protein. Proteins denature at heat. They break down into harmless components. A scorpion roasted over a fire for 3 to 4 minutes is non-venomous. Remove the stinger as a precaution. The flesh is high in protein and similar in flavor to soft shell crab. They are sold as street food in Beijing and Bangkok and consumed across Asia and the Middle East. In a desert survival scenario, they are not a last resort. They are a reliable food source that most people walk past because cultural conditioning overrides rational assessment. Item 12. Bull kelp. One item first for anyone within walking distance of an ocean. Bull kelp and edible seaweeds wash ashore along every Pacific and Atlantic coastline after storms. Edible raw, edible dried. Bull kelp contains more iodine than any terrestrial food source on Earth. Significant protein, critical trace minerals. Rockweed, dulse, and sea lettuce are exposed at low tide on rocky coastlines everywhere. No hunting, no preparation. The shoreline does the work. Now, I said I would tell you about the fish that literally come to you. Item 13. The fish that come to you. On the beaches of Newfoundland every summer, Something happens that looks impossible the first time you witness it. Millions of small silverfish, Capelin, Malletus villosus, surge onto the beach in mass spawning events. They roll in on waves, they cover the sand. They can be scooped by hand, by bucket, by any container within reach. The event lasts hours. The caloric windfall for anyone present requires no skill, no tool, and no preparation beyond showing up. This happens on the beaches of Iceland, on the coast of Norway, all along the northern seashore of the province of Quebec in late spring, on the rocky beaches, where generations of shoreline communities have harvested them by hand. The Capelin roll is annual, predictable, and has been documented for as long as records exist. It is not the only fish that does this. On southern California beaches, from March through August, twice each month, California Grunion, Loresta tenuis, come ashore at night to spawn in the wet sand. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife publishes the exact date of every predicted Grunion run for the entire season on their public website. Thousands of people show up with buckets. The fish require no hook, no net, no tool at all. On the rivers of British Columbia and Alaska, the Lichen ran in masses so dense that First Nations peoples harvested them with rakes. They were so fat they would burn like a candle if dried and lit. The trade routes between coastal and interior First Nations communities were named grease trails, after the Lichen oil they transported. Not one of these events requires equipment. Everyone is publicly documented, annually predictable, and free. Item 14. Acorns. Every oak tree in North America produces them. Every squirrel on the continent has demonstrated their caloric value for 10,000 years. At 400 calories per 100 grams, acorns are nutritionally equivalent to wheat flour. They were not a supplementary food for native California. They were the primary calorie source for the largest pre-contact population density in North America. The preparation step most people miss. Raw acorns contain tannins that cause digestive distress if eaten directly. Shell them, grind into meal, soak in cold water, changed every 8 hours for 48 hours until the bitterness is gone. The result is a neutral-flavored, high-calorie flour that can be dried, formed into flat cakes, or cooked as porridge. The leaching step is 2 days of patience. In return, every oak forest on the continent becomes a functioning flour source. Item 15. The cure growing beside Cartier's ship. Winter, 1536. St. Lawrence River. 25 of Jacques Cartier's crew were dead. Another 50 were dying of scurvy. Gums blackened, legs swollen, teeth falling. An Iroquois leader named Domagaya had recovered from the same illness weeks earlier. He showed Cartier's crew how to brew a tea from the bark and needles of the white cedar, the tree they called Aneda. Men who had been expected to die recovered within days. Cartier called it a miracle and returned to France. European physicians dismissed the finding as savage medicine, unscientific, not credible from a source without formal training. Scurvy continued killing European sailors for the next 260 years. James Lind published his citrus findings in 1747. The British Royal Navy adopted citrus rations in 1795. 260 years after an Iroquois man on a Quebec riverbank had already solved the problem, using the same tree species lining every highway, every trail, and every suburban backyard from British Columbia to Newfoundland. And 1 cup of pine needle tea contains 5 times more vitamin C than an orange. The tree costs nothing. It grows back. The European medical establishment watched men die from a preventable disease for nearly 3 centuries to protect the credibility of formal expertise over indigenous knowledge. That tree is not a winter backdrop. It is a pharmacy that has been growing beside you your entire life. Item 16. Cicadas. In 2024, for the first time since 1803, 2 separate broods of periodical cicadas emerged simultaneously across the eastern United States. Trillions of them. Brood 13 and Brood 19 surfacing together, a convergence that happens once every 221 years. They covered trees, sidewalks, and entire neighborhoods in the Midwest and Southeast for weeks. Most people spent those weeks complaining about the noise. Here is what the FDA published during that emergence, verbatim in an official communication. Don't eat cicadas if you're allergic to seafood, as these insects share a family relation to shrimp and lobsters. That is not a warning against eating cicadas. That is the FDA confirming they are food, with a specific preparation note for a specific allergy group, 47% protein by approximate value. That figure comes from University of Georgia research published by the USDA Extension Service during the 2024 emergence. A single cup of cicadas contains more protein than a chicken breast. They have been consumed across East Asia, Mexico, and sub-Saharan Africa for centuries. They require no hunting. They emerge by the trillion in daylight, and they are slow. In a survival scenario involving a periodical brood emergence, protein is not a problem. It is walking toward you. The noise was never the problem. The noise was dinner. Item 17, garden snails. In the 1850s, a California entrepreneur imported European brown garden snails to Sacramento, deliberately, carefully, with the specific intention of establishing a commercial escargot operation for San Francisco's growing French restaurant market. The snails escaped. Within decades, they had colonized the entire Pacific coast and eventually spread across North America. The species is Helix aspersa. It is the most widely consumed escargot species in France, Italy, and Spain. It is the snail that appears on restaurant menus in Paris at 25 euros per serving. The USDA National Agricultural Library maintains an active heliciculture, snail farming, resource page because Helix aspersa is a documented high-protein, low-cholesterol food source currently farmed commercially in multiple U.S. states. The California Department of Food and Agriculture classifies the identical snail as an agricultural pest. The moluscicide industry, the chemical sector dedicated to killing them, is a multi-million-dollar segment of the pesticide market. Homeowners across North America spend money every year poisoning a snail that a French restaurant would charge them $30 to eat. After rain, they surface on every garden wall, every sidewalk, and every planter box on the continent. Collect them. Fast them on clean greens for 48 hours to purge the gut. Boil for 3 minutes. They are the same animal. They have always been the same animal. Someone just made sure you thought of them as a pest before you could think of them as dinner. Stay with me, because the next item on this list planted itself across 9 million acres of American soil. The government paid to put it there, and not one emergency preparedness document has ever mentioned that you can eat it. Item 18, kudzu. In 1876, the United States government introduced kudzu to the American South, first as an ornamental plant, then, during the 1930s Dust Bowl, as an aggressive soil erosion solution. The government paid farmers $8 per acre to plant it. Within 2 decades, kudzu was classified as a federal noxious weed. The USDA now spends approximately $5,000 per hectare per year attempting to control it. Kudzu covers between 7 and 9 million acres of the southeastern United States today. Every part of it is edible: leaves, flowers, shoots, and roots. The roots, which can grow to enormous size, are used in Japan as a culinary starch called kuzu, a premium cooking ingredient sold in Japanese grocery stores at $15 per pound. The flowers are sweet and edible raw. The young leaves are identical to spinach in preparation and nutritional profile. The government planted it. The government now spends hundreds of millions of dollars trying to kill it. And not one official emergency preparedness document from any agency has noted that the vine covering 9 million acres of the American South is free, edible, and nutritionally documented. That omission is not accidental. Item 19, giant water bugs. The University of Minnesota's Department of Entomology describes Lithoceros americanus as one of the largest insects in North America, 2 to 3 inches in length, capable of subduing frogs, small fish, and even juvenile waterfowl with an injected digestive enzyme. They are found in ponds, slow-moving streams, and still water across the continent. They are the insect most responsible for the phenomenon of biting toes in freshwater swimming holes. In Thailand, they are called mang da. They are sold in open-air markets, prepared in street food stalls, and used as a flavoring agent in a fermented paste. A peer-reviewed nutritional analysis documents their protein and fat content. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization cites giant water bugs by species in their 2013 report on edible insects as a global food security resource. In North America, they are something people scream about and throw back into the water. Here is the detail that changes the calculus in a survival situation. Giant water bugs are nocturnal flyers. During warm months, they leave the water and fly toward lights. Any light source, a fire, a headlamp, a lantern, draws them in on their own. You do not need to find them. You need to keep a light on. Remove the stinger with a knife before handling. The venom is a digestive enzyme. It is denatured completely by heat. Roast or boil for 4 minutes. Their flavor, documented by entomologists and food writers who have consumed them, is described as sweet and floral. Similar to scallop or blue crab, they are in every pond you have ever swum in. They have been flying toward fire for as long as there has been fire. Item 20, milkweed. Right now, in millions of North American backyards, people are deliberately planting milkweed. Conservation organizations, government environmental programs, and social media campaigns have successfully created one of the most widespread voluntary plant cultivation movements in North American history, all in service of protecting monarch butterfly habitat. Not one of those campaigns has mentioned that every edible part of the common milkweed has been documented as a survival food by plains and eastern indigenous nations for centuries. The plant is Asclepias syriaca. In spring, the young shoots emerge from the ground and are edible after boiling in 2 changes of water. The flower buds, when green and tight, can be boiled and eaten as a vegetable. The open flowers are edible raw. The immature seed pods, before the silk develops, can be boiled and consumed. The preparation requirement is identical for every stage. Heat, which breaks down the cardiac glycosides the plant produces as a defense mechanism. This is not folk medicine. It is documented botanical fact, confirmed in the published ethnobotanical literature on Lakota, Ojibwe, and Haudenosaunee food systems. The same plant that monarch conservation programs have spent millions promoting, the plant people now protect carefully in their gardens, was simultaneously a complete emergency food source that has been quietly edited out of every public communication about the species. You were told to plant it for the butterflies. Nobody told you it was also food. That omission is worth examining. The butterfly story is true. So is the other one. 20 food sources, documented, free, hiding in plain sight. The survival industry sells gear, licenses, and skills that take years to master. But it rarely tells you the stranger truth. The insects in your yard, the snails you poison, the bugs flying toward your fire, even the plants you grow for butterflies, were food all along. This knowledge was never lost. Indigenous people knew it. Soldiers studied it. Science confirms it. The system had other priorities, so share this before someone needs it, because when survival matters, it's already too late to start learning. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.